We continue today in our year of the Bible with Zechariah. I am Andrew Whaley. We've been spending some time here recently in the Persian period, and Zechariah comes to us from that same time period. I thought it might be useful, since we've been at this for several months, to hit some of the major highlights of our historical timeline as we get started. Zechariah, as I said, is written in the Persian period, the most recent period we've been in. We began our journey in Genesis in what we call the prehistory. That is largely the narratives of God through Genesis, Exodus, the giving of the Torah, Numbers, Joshua, and Judges. When we get to 1 Samuel, you'll remember we have historical evidence for David. We believe David takes the throne in about 1000 BCE. The kingdoms split after Solomon's reign into the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. During that time period, you have the Assyrians come in and destroy Israel in 722 BC. And then later in 586 BC, the new superpower, the Babylonians, come and haul off the people of Jerusalem to exile. You'll remember reading Jeremiah and Lamentations, Ezekiel and Isaiah. Then in 540, the Persians take over as the new superpower with King Cyrus, and the people return to their land. So that's sort of the journey that we have been on and where we are now in this Persian period. The book of Zechariah breaks down into two sections. The first section is chapters 1 through 8. There are four themes we see here. There's an emphasis, as we've heard from some of our other minor prophets, on the return of the people from exile in Babylon back to Jerusalem to reestablish the city and reconstitute the order of life together in the temple. Also in Zechariah, we have these imperatives about keeping true to the Torah. This is a lot like what we read in Deuteronomy. There are imperatives of what to do, and there are warnings about the consequences if the people do not obey the Torah. There's also promises here, promises in Zechariah of a renewed land, prosperity for the people, and a vision of all nations streaming into Zion. Here we have a God who is passionate about Jerusalem. The second section of Zechariah is chapters 9 through 14, and it has sort of two subsections. Chapters 9 through 11 are an oracle against the nations. We've heard plenty of those. An oracle against the nations and a promise of a renewed and restored Judah. And then in chapters 12 through 14, we have a new genre. This repetition of the phrase, on that day, we hear. On that day, a time in the future that will be enacted and imposed by Yahweh. This is not a hope in a new Davidic king. This is a hope in a God enacting a whole new world order. There is, in this section, a mixture of judgment and hope. Because of this new emphasis in Zechariah, we have come to see here in the book an apocalyptic emphasis. An apocalyptic book means that it is a vision of a world destroyed and then rebuilt and governed by Yahweh. It is apocalyptic. In our Christian tradition, Zechariah may have been one of Jesus' most influential prophets that he read. It's in Zechariah 9 that we hear that the king will come into Jerusalem humble and riding on a donkey. Jesus must have known that passage when he sent his disciples on Palm Sunday to bring him a donkey to ride into the city. Also, that vision of a future enacted by God, that kingdom of God that Jesus talked about, was much in line with that future that Zechariah saw. There's also language in Zechariah of a renewed covenant, or what Jesus might call at the Last Supper, a new covenant. And then finally, Zechariah describes the people of God as though they are like sheep without a shepherd, and the shepherds who have been put over them are not leading them well. We have heard Jesus use this language in his life and his teachings, which leads us to believe that Zechariah may have been an important prophet for him. As you read this book, perhaps Zechariah may become a little more important of a prophet to you.